Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to My Take. This is an offshoot of the 10X Blueprint podcast where I talk about current events with some friends that have some great knowledge and great opinions on something that is relevant to the culture of business as well as the culture of just fun and life in general, right? So today I have with me two guests that we're going to have an amazing conversation about the art of war, which is another synonym really for strategy, right? Which can be applied to many, many things to your business, to your life, to your marriage, whatever you want, right? So I have with me today Mr. Orlando Hampton. He is the author of the newsletter, the LinkedIn newsletter called Robin of the Hood. How you doing, Orlando?
Fantastic. Good to be here, Simone.
All right, fantastic. And we also have with us Mr. Gavin Delisere, and he is the CEO of Omni Worldwide, a production company based in Atlanta, Georgia. How you doing, Gavin?
How you doing, Simone? Glad to be here.
All right. So today we are talking about the art of war and the article that Orlando just released back on May 7th about the beef with Kendrick Lamar and Drake. This was something that when I saw it, I was like, what is this now? What is this right here? And then as I read through it and understood how this definitely applies to business strategy and competitive advantages, like for instance, the red ocean versus blue ocean competitive advantage strategies and how you maneuver through that. We got together and we said we have to have a conversation. So we definitely wanted to have these people, the author, as well as someone who is a self-professed, person who is so deep into the culture of hip hop and just the Black culture in general. That's Gavin. So he's basically our resident expert in this right now. So please tell us first, Orlando, what was the inspiration to writing the article?
I think for me, the thing that started it first was when so first of all, I am a hip hop fan. So I am a big fan of hip hop, been a fan of hip hop all my life. I'm pretty much as old as hip hop. I'm 49 years old. And so I've experienced, lots of different stages in this. And this was everywhere. This was effectively a showdown, a competition between the two people who most people would deem at the top of hip hop as one and two. And, so that in itself was interesting and entertaining and inspiring. And then from a business perspective, I am always interested in competition and strategy and approach. And you rarely ever see a competition between the number one and number two. And the reason why is that the benefit for number one is just not high enough. So whether this is in business or in sports, in boxing, there are ratings for boxers, and it's not that common for the number one, the champion, to fight the top contender. Because if you happen to survive this and you win, you're just still the champion. There's not a lot of upside for that fight when you can fight one of the lower ranked contenders. And so this is the reason why you don't see these matchups very often, is because, in this case, I would say Drake was kind of the incumbent and the number one. And it's just hard to get the number one to actually engage in this kind of thing. And so when it became clear that they were going to engage, I was just enthralled from the beginning, and I enjoyed it. Gavin is somebody I keep on speed dial for these discussions.
I'm certainly happy to have him here today because, Gavin is definitely, I'm looking at you to add some real context to the listeners as to why this is important and why there is a connection back to strategy on this, because I think it's a good point that, Drake is the heavyweight in this particular situation. Mm-hmm. And if the heavyweight beats someone who is quote unquote the underdog, as you said, Orlando, it's like, okay, big deal. We expected you to win anyway. So you have much more to lose by engaging in this. So, but from a street fighter type positioning, it means a little something different. So Gavin, please tell us, what is this beef really about in the first place? What started this?
All right. So, there's speculation as to whether it started like before Big Sean's Control song dropped, which had Jay Electronica and Kendrick Lamar in it, where he pretty much calls out everybody who could be perceived as a competitor, like lyrically, right? Saying, all right, I'm coming for y'all heads, essentially, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's like that's when everybody became privy, like, okay, hip hop is competitive at the foundation. So everybody else took it as like friendly competition for the most part, at least, so we thought. But essentially, Drake might have taken that a little bit more personally. And he went on interviews, pretty much expressing his dislike for such comments by Kendrick Lamar. And, don't dap me up when you see me kind of thing. If you're on that side, stay there. And that's been like one of the biggest quotes throughout this entire view currently is pick a side, stay on that side, essentially, if you over there. So it's kind of like a civil war kind of thing. But yes, it graduated from there. So then the subliminal shots started to fire off. And then, yeah, over
Mm.
time. I don't know how nitty gritty you want to get into there, but we can kind of look. I want to make sure that the viewer can kind of just, you know.
Well, those of you who are not aware, which it sounds like that's like almost no one, but it's for those of you that are not aware, I encourage you to read the Art of War article on Orlando Hampton's LinkedIn page. You can access it there and you can get a little bit more context. But of course, there's also Google, there's Reddit. You can listen to some of the diss tracks that are out there, and that might give you some context. So when you're stuck in traffic and you're looking for some entertainment, right? I think this is another way that you can do your research with your ears on this one. So I want to talk about the book, The Art of War, for a second by Sun Tzu, because that's really the namesake for the article, right? And there are three important lessons from the book, The Art of War. And this is a thick book. It's been around for ages and ages, but it is important for a reason. There are three things I want to point out. So one of the things in Art of War is it emphasizes the importance of knowing your enemy as well as yourself, right? Know thy enemy, right? So you got to know what you're dealing with. You got to do your research. The next thing, point number 2, I want to emphasize is avoid what is strong and attack what is weak. Avoid what is strong and attack what is weak. So you're not going to go, if you're the underdog, you're not going to go head to head with your enemy in a way where they are strong, i.e., as you said, Gavin, or in Orlando, Drake was the number one. He's got the popularity, he's got the numbers. So you're not going to want to hit him over there trying to like battle over followers or battle over album sales. You got to hit him where he's weak, as you pointed out. So the third part is, and this is the part that I love, which I think that Kendrick applied masterfully, is winning without fighting. Right? The concept of winning without fighting is a key thing. And this is where, again, you don't go head to head with the big dog. You basically look at other strategies and create this conflict and these victories without that direct conflict. And I don't know if any of you who have recently watched the reboot on Hulu of the movie Shogun, but that's another, that movie, which has been remade and so forth, is all about the art of war. And I would also encourage anybody who's interested to listen to that. So, I mean, let's talk about what Kendrick did then. Orlando. Let's talk about some of the key points that you hit,
Yeah.
so we can discuss them individually.
No, so a lot of this, and I'm glad you brought up the book because there are some themes here that are so important, right? Even starting with your first theme of, know yourself and know the enemy. That is the key in, when you're engaging in a competition or in a battle and a beef like this one. And, one of the immediate disadvantages at play here for Drake as being the number one is there's just more public fodder. There's more information about you that is available. It's a lot easier to know Drake than it is to know Kendrick Lamar, who is, even by, from a superstar's perspective, Kendrick is rather recluse. He is not like, tweeting regularly on social media, or he's not like doing interviews on a really regular basis. His, Gav can speak to this, but his output in terms of music, he drops an album every 3 or 4 years and disappears and goes away and then, pop up as a verse. And then you never hear from him again. So, just in terms of knowing Kendrick, it's harder to get to know Kendrick, right? So, already in the first piece, you almost have to be advantage Kendrick right away because it's just super difficult to get to know anything about Kendrick and much easier to get to know things about Drake. So that's kind of like your first bit. the second piece there that you talk about, like, attacking what is weak instead of attacking what is strong. I actually think both guys in this particular case actually attempted to do that, right? So if you lay out the strategy, where Drake is strong is he makes hits. He has been on top of the charts
Mhm.
for over a decade. He, has consistently made hits and owned the summer year after year. And so if you're Kendrick, there's no point in saying that Drake makes bad music, because that is like, almost that is like incredibly easy to deny, right? And Kendrick, his strong point is being a lyricist, and these complex rhyme patterns, and so there's kind of no point in Drake suggesting that Kendrick is a poor lyricist. And I think they both stayed away from that and attempted to go for what was weak. But this actually opens up the very first piece in the strategic battle that I thought went well for Kendrick and poor for Drake. And that is that Kendrick, what he decided to hit Drake on was cultural relevance, that you are not culturally authentic, that you are, in fact, playing cosplay
Ooh,
with
ooh,
the
that hurts.
Yeah.
with the Black American culture,
Mhm.
and you are really not of it. You're just
Mm,
simply trying to pretend to be in these spaces. Where if you look at Drake, his approach on Kendrick seemingly was that you are not as good of a guy as you pretend to be. You
Mhm.
pretend to be, a good guy, but really you're not that good of a guy. You're kind of, a dog, and you
Mhm.
are guilty of infidelity or
I know.
or
I was looking at these insults
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
accusations. I was like, what are we talking about here?
yeah.
Pedophilia, infidelity,
Yeah.
abuse. What?
Yeah. They went way below the belt. They definitely, all the gloves are off. The gloves are off. With this back and forth. But 100%, I agree with you, Orlando. That's exactly what happened. Is like, all right, well, Drake is on like a high horse, right? And I guess some would say his arrogance kind of bit him in the ass, for lack of a better term. But um, ultimately, Kendrick is a representation of like the inner city Black youth. And that is a lot of people, that represents a lot of people. So even though he may drop, every once in a blue moon, he tends to make an impact, which is why he got Pulitzer awards and stuff for his poetic way of writing and his poetic way of speaking to the Black plight. But ultimately, he's saying that Drake has on a costume, and at the end of the day, you take your costume off, but what you see is what you get when you're dealing with me, and I am the representation or the exhibition of the culture. So it feels different when he's speaking versus when Drake is speaking, because of the vantage point in which they come from. People of course start to go back to Drake being a half Black Jewish kid from
Ooh,
Canada. you
ooh.
know but you go from that to, like, to you talking he's a tough guy now. He really built himself up into a mob boss, is what it seems, especially after he defeated Meek Mill, which is like, the street kid poster child for a certain time window in hip hop. It was like, if you wanted that 1998 street feel, you could go to Meek. And once he defeated him, Drake was like, oh yeah, no one can stop me. It was like, so he started running through people, you know.
You know, when I think about all that's happened with this, I think
Mhm.
about a few things. This reminds me of a SWOT analysis, right? A SWOT,
Mhm. Yeah, yeah.
SWOT, right?
Mhm.
Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So in this case, Kendrick took the opportunity and said, okay, you know what? I'm gonna grab some of this light for myself, and I'm gonna hit you where you're weak, right? I'm gonna go after those weaknesses,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna essentially cut you off at the knees.
Mhm.
And I mean, it sounds like it happened masterfully, and the crowd basically went over to Kendrick's side, and now and left Drake a little bit weary, and there was some faux pas in this response, in the strategic or lack thereof strategy response, because there was a lot of time, a lot of gaps in the response of what was going on musically. And I see this in terms of PR firms that are doing crisis management. they tell you, but they tell you when, oh no, you got to respond right away, or they like, oh no, this is not worth you responding. Like you're too big to respond to this thing. Do not even engage. Or no, this is something you have to respond to right away. So there was. So what do you think about that those faux pas that occurred there, Orlando?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is, and there's kind of a hyper connected world we all live in today. Information is coming faster than ever. Responses to things are coming like immediately, right? So, like in our political world, right after the State of the Union, I mean, right after, as soon as it ends, the opposing party is on your screen giving a rebuttal, right?
Yes, literally
This has
seconds
become,
later.
this has become standard protocol, right?
Mhm.
They've barely had a chance to digest whatever was in that State of Union speech, and they are already responding to it, right? And so there's kind of this hyper speed thing that we're all kind of in, where people think things have to happen immediately. And I actually think one of the like geniuses of Kendrick is actually his use of silence, his use of the quiet times, right? Kendrick Kendrick creates moments, and the reason why those moments are so effective is because they're rare, right? When Kendrick, if this latest iteration of this beef, if you think about the first direct shot being fired, it was Kendrick appearing on the Like That record with Future and Metro,
Right.
and Kendrick just showed up and dropped one verse, not a song, a bunch of like direct action things, but just one verse. He went in, dropped 16, and then he just disappeared. Right? It was like he never explained a single verse. He never tweeted a message.
Yeah.
He didn't go on some kind of interview tour.
Yeah.
It was a hit and run.
Yeah.
Yes. And by the way, Like That was the #1 song in America for 5 weeks. And the playbook Like That for an artist is it's time to tour. It's time to go to the radio station and work this record. He didn't work the record. He didn't talk about it. He just went away. And that was kind of the first thing, because that put Drake in this situation of people were like clamoring for Drake to respond, right? Drake, you have to respond to this. You have to do a thing. And after Drake did respond, he came out with a record called Push Ups, which was, a direct response, to Kendrick and a few others who had come at him. And it was like, okay, Drake has responded, right? Great record. This is amazing. We have a beef on our hand. Kendrick, it's your turn. And you know what happened? Silence. No response, no message. At some point, it wasn't clear that Kendrick was ever going to respond. He waited 17 days before he dropped the record, Euphoria, as a response to Drake. But in that 17 days, that silence actually was working to his advantage. Drake had got so wound up at one point, he created another record. He used AI to actually, mimic the voices of Tupac and Snoop Dogg, and he appeared with them on another record. I think that was a misstep because it brought in like a whole group of people who, one, don't like the use of AI in music in that way, right? They feel like that's inauthentic. Another group of people who, whether or not they were interested in this particular beef, have love for Tupac and couldn't believe that someone had put words into like a
like, how dare you? How dare you?
100%. I mean, some would say that Drake was leveraged to usher in AI so that the general population can kind of accept that as a new norm of being able to use AI as a form of artistry or prolonging, I guess, their youth or whatever it is, to be able to make money off someone's likeness, essentially, with or without them, right? But again, this is a TikTok debate right here, right? Outside of that, 100%, you hit the nail on the head, Orlando. You took the words out of my mouth about the silence is golden thing. I think as an established artist or an established rapper, once you get the initial grind of getting here out the way, then it's about creating moments. Now, Drake maintains a high level of power because he's constantly in your face. He doesn't take a break. Like, it seems like every day he has a new song, new album. And we appreciate it. You know, his music is hot. We're not gonna sit here and act like it's not hot. But you know, Kendrick Lamar, because he speaks so, you know, like spacey. There's so much gap in between the speaking. When he does speak, the world stops spinning. And yeah, I could see that Drake's, you know,
Mm.
antsiness could kind of increase. But in terms of the value, Kendrick Lamar keeps his value very high by doing that. So to me, I said it prior to the beef actually getting as dirty as it did. I said there's no way that Drake could really win this because the value on his vocals, the stock is not that high when you know we hear you all the time. You understand what I'm saying? It kind of we're already. So I think that is definitely like prevalent in established businesses. They have to be very careful in terms of when they do speak, and when they do speak, it must be impactful, especially in this climate that we live in today.
You know, you just said some stuff that's I really want to double click on. You talked about in the world of big business, global corporations, juggernauts, right? They have to be very careful about what they say and when they say it because the world will stop and listen.
Mm-hmm.
And actually just today did a post about Apple and their recent release of their brand new iPad Pro, and people are not happy. And you
Mm-hmm.
want to know why they're not happy? Because of the ad spot that they created around the release. And they're saying that, you know what? This ad is a misstep because it looks like you are crushing human creativity and you're celebrating it. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not feeling you on it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so now this is where your corporate brand, is basically now in jeopardy. So this is the response. What's Apple going to say? How long are they going to take to respond to it? Right?
Right.
Who
Right.
is going to swoop in at this opportunity at the Apple misstep and
Mm-hmm.
try to grab some of their market share on something else? Right? How are
Mm-hmm.
they going to handle this crisis of brand communication?
Mm-hmm.
And when I think of companies in general that actually have done or have applied the tenets of the art of war that I mentioned earlier,
Mm-hmm.
to emphasize the importance of knowing your enemy, the importance of exploiting the enemy's weakness, and the concept of fighting, of winning without fighting. When I
Mm-hmm.
think of those brands, I think of Apple, I
Mm-hmm.
think of Google, and I think of Netflix, right?
Mm-hmm.
Apple, because it's been strategic in terms of its product launches and market dominance, right? You remember it came in, Samsung used to have a lot. It came in with the no keyboard and rotating screen and
Right. Right.
snatched market share, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then think about Google, Alphabet company. They attributed a lot of their success to leverage search and advertising and technology and dominating in that market, to really disrupt. Remember other search engines? Crickets. It's like yeah, we have Bing. Yeah, we have what is the other one from Microsoft? See, that's the problem. It's not even on the tip of
Yeah.
my tongue.
Yeah.
That's a problem
Yeah.
already, right?
Yeah.
So when you think about that, they came in, Google came in and snatched a lot of market share. AOL. Oh my God, what happened there? That
Mm-hmm.
used to be the everything, right? And then you look at Netflix. Netflix. I mean, we all know the story. Blockbuster was the thing, and Netflix came in and swiped that all away. And it's even funnier that Blockbuster had the opportunity to buy Netflix more than one time and said no, right? So when you get these crisis scenarios and you find yourself in this competitive advantage arena and you're like, okay, how am I going to respond? Can I respond quickly? Should I bother responding? I think, we see this type of thing play out over and over again with global corporate brands. And there definitely is a lesson here to be learned with the art of war.
Totally. There's so much to this. I mean, I look, there's so many things, and I won't regurgitate my article here, but like there are things that even this new age war, right? So like this is not your father's hip hop beef. This is a different world, right? Different context, different things at play. So I'll give you two things that like were incredible, and they are modern day, and so they've hardly ever happened in the past. One of those things was Kendrick effectively deputized an army of content creators
Oh,
that
yes.
work in his favor. right? And he did, it was like an incredible strategic move. Is that, you know, there's a whole group of people on the internet who do these reaction you know, videos, right? Something happens and their whole thing is reacting to the thing that happens. And, you know, so, you know, Kendrick drops, you know, which is probably, you know, going to be one of the hits of the summer, not like us. It has like, you know, it's a bop. It got a nice
No
trap.
question. No.
It's, you know, everybody loves it. It gets you up out of your seat and you're dancing. And of course, the content creators, right? The people who do these reaction videos, they are all over it, right? They're creating their reaction videos. They're all dancing around. Well, typically what happens is there are copyrights associated with music. And, you know, the labels maintain those copyrights so that they can actually maintain all the revenue generated from those particular songs. So you cannot monetize those videos if you're like a content creator because you're playing the song. That money has to go back to the label. Well, Kendrick actually went around and struck all the copyrights off of off of that record for the internet, and that basically allowed these reaction or content creators to actually monetize and to make money by putting up videos reacting to Kendrick songs. So if you just look at reactions on the internet, you know, I don't have the data behind this, but I bet it's 20 to 1 in terms of, you know, people positively reacting to Kendrick songs. And that's because of the incentive structure in place. Forget about the actual, you know, rap music or the quality of the song. It's just, he actually like basically deputized a whole universe of people out there to, like, you know, support this and kind of promote this.
You know, that one point I just want to make on that is that he essentially multiplied himself, right? And in the media world, that's called earned value. So he has basically just created millions of dollars worth of free advertising for his music by letting go of the copyrights to that one song and allowing the creators to have at it and multiply his impressions and his engagement about that song. So the earned value is through the roof. That is the genius move in this, and that's how you move from you know, underdog to number one. You do that enough times, right?
100%. It also speaks on ownership. So like, you know, Drake was accusing Kendrick of like being signed to one person who signed to another person who signed to another person, but that's not the case. That's actually not factual. I mean, he is signed to Interscope by way of Universal, similar to Drake, which is funny because they actually come underneath the same umbrella, but Drake is number one at Universal. Either way, Kendrick Lamar has exhausted his contract with Top Dog Entertainment, which guaranteed him or allowed him to leverage a sense of ownership of his publishing and his masters too, if I'm not mistaken, as he completed that. Now, with that being said, he's able to make a call like that because he has that ownership. Drake cannot just do that. You know, when he when he re-signed to Universal after finishing his Young Money contract, they gave him damn near $500 million. It was almost $500 million, but they get a piece of everything in the likeness of Drake, and he doesn't own his music.
Wow.
So he couldn't make that. He couldn't make that same play to go and allow content creators to eat. Everybody go get some money. You know, he can't do that. So that just speaks on a sense of ownership in that position of power, not just from, you know, a social standpoint, but also behind the scenes in his business.
It's an amazing it's an amazing lesson in business in 2024, right? Of this idea of, like, you know, getting these things going. Look, there's just so much fun here. There's so much, you know, ways to go deep with it. You know, Drake had dissed a producer, Metro Booming, and he actually went on the internet, produced a beat, and told everybody, you can rap on this beat and I will give this beat to you for free. You can get your own Metro Booming beat and a $10,000 prize. And if you look on the internet right now, there are people rapping in everything from Hindi to, to Mandarin, you know, dissing Drake, you know, all across the world.
I'm laughing because the beat is called BBL Drizzy, and they're saying that Drake has gotten plastic surgery. So it's I have to let everybody in on this inside joke because it's absolutely hilarious. Like, and everybody is playing this beat everybody's rapping to it. And again, you talk about the community coming together and unification at the expense of Drake is crazy. The internet is insane. It's the wild, wild west right now.
Well, on that note, I think we're gonna wrap up this episode of My Take. I think this was hilarious, but it was also a great masterclass in applying some of the concepts in the art of war. About how do you battle from being an underdog and how do you come up on top. And shout out to Kendrick Lamar for all of the earned value and opportunities and impressions and hits and growth that you are seeing. I'm sure your streams are up like crazy, and your money is up to follow too. So as we wrap up, any last words from you, Orlando?
I just I enjoyed the competition. I also want to shout out to Drake. He took the competition. He took the fight. Again, 100%. Most people don't. And frankly, him coming out on the losing end probably almost ensures that we won't see another one for quite some time.
Right.
because the risk and the ROI is just higher than ever. Because it was super entertaining.
Gavin, any last words from you?
Yeah, similar. I mean, I have my respect for Drake has actually increased because he didn't duck any fights at all. Like when it comes down to hip hop being a competitive sport, he was never afraid to go out there and kind of spar from a lyrical standpoint and from an entertainment standpoint. Because believe me, I look at it as wrestling. Like I hope people don't take this stuff too seriously, and that's the scary part. But that's another podcast, right? But yes, there's a lot of respect for both of these cats. I definitely have Kendrick Lamar as the victor on all fronts, And yeah, I mean, look, other than that, I like this podcast you have going on here. We want to shout out this 10X brand thing, we want to shout out Simone. I think what you have here is dope, and I like it. Hopefully I can be back.
Well, absolutely. Well, on that note, I want to thank you both for joining me on the 10X Blueprint broadcast because, we are launching officially. The podcast does launch on May 15th. And Orlando is actually our first guest on the podcast. Yay! So this is going to be amazing. So anyone who's listening on this, you're going to be able to watch the video version of this on YouTube, and you can listen to the audio version on Spotify and Apple Podcasts when we launch. So thank you all for joining today. And if anybody wants to connect with Orlando or connect with Gavin, they're both on LinkedIn. Orlando at Orlando Hampton and Gavin at.
Reach out to me at Omni Worldwide.
Omni Worldwide, okay.
Yep.
And you can reach out to me, Simone Knight, at Simone Knight, or at Brandiverse Marketing on LinkedIn or any other social media platform. So on that note, peace out.
Peace.